Eyes wide open.
If you think Dogman is just a legend, keep watching. From shadowy figures stalking rural backroads, from towering wolf-like creatures emerging from the tree line, these sightings have left witnesses shaken, speechless, and forever changed. If you've ever wondered what really growls in the wilderness after sunset, you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's take a look.
There's a specific moment in every Dogman encounter where the witness stops being a spectator and starts to become prey. It's not when they hear something. It's not when they first see it. It's when they realize it sees them.
So I just seen a couple of videos talking about this Dogman creature. It's been seen in Michigan, Mississippi, Wisconsin, and Virginia. And they all talk about this 7 to 8 foot tall, oversized wolf that can walk up straight like a human. Extremely fast, strong, and like just causes havoc, like wherever you see it. What is this mysterious creature, and is it real?
I'm trying to warn you that these things are real. Here's 3 signs that the Dogman might be nearby. Dead silence. No birds, no bugs, no wind. Just nothing. Nature doesn't go quiet for no reason, but it does when a predator is near. And the Dogman, that's no ordinary predator. The smell. People describe it as a foul, rotting stench, like decaying meat mixed with wet dog and copper. It lingers and it hits your gut before you even know what you're smelling. The feeling, unexplainable dread, like you're being watched, like something wants you to be afraid. Some witnesses say it's like the air changes, static, heavy, almost electric, and right before a sighting, the fear spikes. If you feel these signs, don't brush them off. Some say Dogman feeds off of fear, and once it finds you, it doesn't always let go. Be safe out there.
There's an alleged Dogman sighting captured on camera in Georgia. A man was out walking his dog through the Georgia woods when he experienced an encounter he couldn't explain, one that terrified him to the core. As they trekked along a seemingly overgrown trail, they noticed something massive and dark ahead. The dog rushed toward the figure, and the owner hesitated but followed. Suddenly, the creature lunged out right in front of them. Its speed was astonishing, so fast that while Bigfoot remains the most well-known cryptid in Georgia, reports of Dogman-like creatures have quietly surfaced over the years.
I just commented and was like, have y'all ever heard of Dogman, which is somebody that, something, not somebody, something. And it's down here, it's in Mississippi, like in Oxford, Water Valley area. But like we saw it firsthand. In the morning times, it was morning.
Yeah. Basically, it was a man, like, on the tip of the day morning, I'm finna go to work.
And then I always, it probably like 5 in the morning. And it still was kind of dark, but it's kind of, the time, whatever, it's kind of like a little light. And so I always will walk him to the door so that before he go to work. Anyway, so I'm standing out on the outside, he walking to the car, and I'm talking to him. And then, like, he looked where it was like on the outline of the
tree line.
Yeah, the tree line. It was at the tree line. And like we looked, and then
man, when I saw it, the thing was like I was finna get in the car. Then I just felt weird. Then the wind was kind of blowing that morning.
Mm-hmm.
Then I just looked, something told me to look back, and I looked toward the tree line. And I just saw it, at first I just saw it, saw the legs, because it was so tall. So I just, just looked up and I saw it. Then by that time, it's like right there, face up in the trees, and it just started coming towards me. That's when I took off and started running toward the house.
And then when he took off, like I seen him look, and then he was like, kind of like, what the something like that.
Yeah.
And then by the time I looked, he had already start running, but then, and this be scared.
Never.
Never. So when I seen he was scared, I got scared.
Man, it was time to be scared. Like, I knew I ain't had nothing to kill it with. I knew we was he would have attacked. I mean, that's why I ran. I knew it was over with. If we would have got it, would have attacked, it was over with.
Man, tallest. And then it was like unproportioned. It was like the bottom half was like smaller than the top half was like.
He was muscular, like big.
Like built. Like, I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. And then, like, so we running back in the house and we had like one screen door and it was like just a little open area. And then you had to go through the other door to get to the thing. So we had to run through two doors, but we locked the door, you know, of course, whatever. But we heard something hit the house.
Yeah, hit it hard too.
Yeah, like on the side where like the tree line was, like it hit the house.
Right, it wanted to come in the house.
And like there was some scary shit. To see this, that was.
Yeah, it was time to be scared. Like for real, I saw it. Like it was gonna be no match. He was gonna slaughter.
Yeah.
Even with a gun.
Yeah. And so that was in Water Valley at our house. So like it's still out there. We ain't never seen it no more. But that made us be a lot more cautious when we going out that door, especially when it's still dark, because I ain't heard of being caught.
I mean, hey, me either. I mean, y'all ain't either probably, but it gotta be still out there. Y'all ain't heard on the news that have been shot or killed or none of this.
And they probably wouldn't even put it on the news no way, because they'll try to keep the public down. But no, that's real.
Yeah, it's real. I mean, it's out there for real though.
Real talk.
So I was a correctional officer for the state of Massachusetts. I was a CO for 10 years. I got fired. I didn't take the mandate that went nationwide, and so they fired me. But in 2017, I was driving home late October, and I had a two-door Nissan Altima 2.5. She was red. I love that little car. It lasted, 300,000 miles. She still would have lived, but I had to get rid of her. Driving home, Walpole, Norfolk line, going down Main Street off of Clark Street. MCI Norfolk is at 2 Clark Street, Norfolk, Mass. You go down, going east, and take a left. I'm trying to get to old Route 1. And I seen a deer ran across the road. And I mean, this deer was not just like walking. This deer was moving. You know, it was one bounce in the street and then cleared both lanes and another bounce. This deer was out of there. And I said, wow, that was bizarre. And as I got to the point where the deer crossed the road, this beast ran right in front of my car. Now the shoulder, it was running on all fours. The shoulder was higher than the hood of my Nissan. It had a high shoulder like a hyena. Its legs were moving in tandem, and it was so fast. It was just there and then going. And my spirit, all the hair on my arm stood up, the hair on my neck stood up, and everything inside of me was screaming, go. And when I looked in the rearview mirror at the side of the road, this thing was appearing to start to stand up on 2 legs. So I don't tell anybody about it for a while. I go to work. I'm working in the yard. We got 1,400 inmates out there walking around. I go into one of the responding units. He's a pretty good guy. He's a Christian guy. He's from North Carolina. I won't say his name. But I tell him, I say, we'll call him Andy. I say, Andy, I seen this thing. And he says, oh, man, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. But a month later, he calls me on the radio. 436-171, 436 on. Can you 25 my location? No emergency. 10-4, 2 mics. Go walking over to his unit, open it up. Andy, what's going on? He goes, hey, man. He's from North Carolina now. He's from Pantego, North Carolina. He went to Pungo Christian Academy as a child. He says, hey, man, remember that thing you seen cross the road a while back? I said, yeah, buddy. Yeah. He said, I think one ate my elementary school teacher. That's a small farming community. I said, what are you talking about? He pulls up his teacher. His teacher's name is Brenda Hamilton. You can Google it. Brenda Hamilton petition. The townspeople want a petition because they say the government is hiding what happened to her. Now, I can tell you it's a small town farming community. He's a Christian man. He's got no reason to lie to me. So he told me information concerning that case that you're not going to hear in reports. You're not going to find in the reports. such as she was believed to be alive for 3 days in the creek bend where they found her at the end of Indian Ridge Road, how all her major muscle groups were removed. She was being eaten for 3 days. That when they found her, they wrapped her up like a burn victim. The only thing holding her together were ligaments and tendons, and they brought her to the hospital where she died. It never gored her intestines, never went for anything that a predator of natural circumstances would go for. Yeah. That being said, the sheriff's talking to his dad explained to him that when they brought the hounds to the woods to go after it, they laid down. They wouldn't go. These things are trained to fight cougars and bear. Whatever it was that ate Miss Hamilton, they weren't going after. Fast forward a couple years, and I'm on the way up to Tamworth, White Mountains, New Hampshire. I got a brother who lives up there. He's got a big property. I was with another officer. I was still an officer at the time. There were these two girls who were broke down on the side of the highway, and they lived off of where we were going. I was with another officer, and we said, hey, I'll give you guys a ride, whatever. And I gave him a ride. If I never gave him a ride, I would have been there when it happened. I'm about, 10 minutes off the road in my brother's house, and I get this call, and he is screaming. He's speaking absolute blabbering gibberish. I get to his house, he's screaming, it's in the yard, it's in the yard. He comes in, hands me a pew, we'll call it for the sake of the infringement on our First Amendment. And this thing was 8-9 feet tall, going after his dog. So we go in the woods looking for it. We let loose a couple rounds, big rounds. And it came back a couple times after that. That being said, I don't know if you guys are believers in higher power. Now, my family's been here since 1667. My grandfather was Samuel Hadley. He died at Lexington, Concord Green. He died fighting in the Revolution. His son, Ebenezer, survived, and I am survived through him. Father, back 11 generations. I'm Algonquin Indian. Algonquin, Huron, and English is my nationality, what I am. I get led by the Holy Spirit to a mountain to pray. Now, I pray all the time. I walk up this mountain 5 or 6 nights a week to pray and warn people about the things that he's shown me. I get up to this mountain, I blast the shofar, do the whole thing, give my prayers as I'm walking down. Now this is, mind you, you can look this place up. This is Waits, WAITT''S, Waits Mount in Malden, Mass. It's only like 4.5 miles, 5 miles, as the crow flies, from Boston. So it's a city. I'm walking down the mountain to where it opens up, and there's a house, a little blue house, and the guy's got like weeds. I remember them as being shrubs, but they might have been big, tall weeds. He let weeds overgrow in his yard. And I remember as I'm walking down the mountain, the hair on my neck starts standing up again. Now he's got two white the mountain dogs there, Great Pyrenees. Those dogs make a ruckus, dude. Roar, 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 roar. It doesn't matter what's moving. It could be a mouse. These things are going crazy. And they're on little chains, and the guy's lights are always on. I'm walking down the mountain, and all the guy's lights are off, and his dogs are in the house silent. Normally, they'd be outside barking.
As I come around that bend, the street light's not there, but I hit my headlights, hit something like sitting on the guardrail, like crouched on it, I thought it was a big black dog. I don't know anything about that. I never was into that. I never thought about it. Every once in a while, somebody would talk about going hiking and going squatching, and I never thought about any of that stuff till now. And it took like 2-3 steps. It didn't wobble. It knew how to walk. It took a couple steps, and it dropped down on all fours. Now, before I tell you what else it did, looking at that thing. It had the head of a dog or a wolf, but it had like a long snout. I would say 5 inches, 6 inches maybe, like a thin, long snout. It had, I'm telling you, I was probably, let me say this, I was probably 15, 20 feet from it. That's it, 15, 20 feet.
Wow.
My headlights are right on it. And I'm shaking. And the teeth were white as ivory. And I would say 3 or 4 inches long. The 2 main canines. The rest were smaller, probably about 4 in between the canines. And then the 2 on the bottom were probably an inch long, 1.5 inches. Not as long as the top 2. It just looked at me. And that look, hold on. That look sent a chill through me. I got that chill now. So cold. The legs were hairy, but not totally covered, like it was real thin. And muscular. The thighs came down to a knee. The knee went back. The shins came down. I don't want to say it had haunches like a dog. To me, it looked more like it had paws for back legs. It was deep. It was a deep, deep chest growl. Loud enough that I heard it with all my windows up, and I felt that in my chest, like that rumble. And I know, I keep saying this, if I'd have got out of that car, that wasn't happening because I couldn't move. It would have went from 0 to 100, I think. That thing standing there, the single most evilest, scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. This was evil. To me, it's just, I think it's ancient. I think it's like Sasquatch. I think the Dogman is the same way. I think that it's a top tier predator. It's an apex predator, and it's hunting and feeding. And I just happened around that bend at that time. Just happened to come around that bend and froze. Fear. I stopped because I was like, what? And then when I started recognizing arms and legs, I couldn't, my arms were just tight on that steering wheel. I couldn't move.
This guy, thank goodness I have not had a Dogman show up in my backyard yet. Okay, not that I know of. But still, I think that's really interesting that these are government officials coming out, Mike, admitting to seeing things like a Dogman in their backyard after going out and doing this. And this is like it's supposed to be like a top secret, like UFO committee or something.
But yet here he is talking about UFOs and hitchhikers and hitchhiker theory and dogmen following him back to his house. You know what I mean? So, like, how much more do you need? You know what I mean?
Let's hear what he has to say. Okay, this is Dr. Stephen Greer, and here we go.
Didn't want to sell it, but what they did, and I know people who did it, they set up the electromagnetic transdimensional phenomenon that then induced horrible phenomenon coming out of the night string of hell, or out of lower frequency opening into other dimensions. It scared the hell out of this rancher, and he was scared off the ranch and sold. Similar thing happened, but it was more of a tax fraud scheme with the people who sold the Bradshaw Ranch, so that this cabal could acquire these sites where there was already some unusual phenomenon that they could then exploit.
I mean, listen to that, Mike. You said there's actually already some unusual phenomenon that they could then exploit.
I want to tell you about something that happened to me while I was in Kentucky for a month. I planned on moving down there permanently. But yeah, that didn't work out for a lot of good reasons. While I was there, my ex-boyfriend decided he wanted to go up the mountain right behind his house one evening on the four-wheeler. So he went and got the four-wheeler out, got it going. Apparently, it has sat for quite a while. I mean, a long time. And if you know anything about four-wheelers, if they sit for a while, they develop issues. Once we finally got it going, we jumped on the four-wheeler and we started. Looked like an old logging trail. I think that's what it was. And it was pretty steep. I mean, we're going up a mountain. But on our way up, all of a sudden, we could smell something dead. And the closer we got to this curve, the stronger it got. We get up around this curve, and I started feeling really uneasy. But we get around the curve and up to the spot we're going to stop at. And we couldn't smell that anymore. It disappeared. We got four-wheeler and we go and sit underneath a big old tree where we could see down in a holler and we could sit there and watch and listen. And if you're wondering, yes, he always carried, wherever we were, he had something on him. We're sitting there and we could hear off in a distance a wood knock. Wow, cool. I got pretty excited for a minute. And then we heard a howl. It didn't sound like a Bigfoot. It sounded more like a very huge dog. So we figured that somebody's dog was carrying on somewhere. We sat there for a little while and we could hear something moving around in the thickets. Because we could hear branches breaking and whatnot. And we're watching very close because we didn't know if it was going to be a bear or what it was. We heard another noise. It was really close. It almost sounded like a growl and a grunt in one. It was weird. I've never heard that before. And we got nervous because it sounded very close. Real close. I got up and moved a little bit. Then we heard it again. And it was even closer. It sounded like it was right on the inside of this thicket. A real heavy undergrowth that had come up. And we could see a couple of the saplings moving. I told him, we gotta go. We gotta go now. I was feeling very anxious. I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. Hearing that noise and then seeing that. We got on the four-wheeler. And remember I said earlier that the four-wheeler sat for quite a while before it's been started? Yeah. It started okay. We're going down this mountain. I wanted to get out of there. We got to that curve where we could smell something dead. That smell, it was gone. By all rights, whatever we smelled dead had to be there. We thought a deer got hit by a car and made it that far and dropped. It was gone. That made me even more nervous because, I don't know how much you know about dogmen, but they stink. They smell like a combination of rotting flesh, garbage, and if they're anywhere near a swamp, you can include that too. Like they've been rolling in death in a swamp hole, then found garbage. It's pretty gross. Anyway, we're heading down this steep mountain, and we're not going very fast at all. And I could hear something keeping up with us back in the woods, just out of sight. I'm telling him, come on, let's go. I want to get it. Instead of wanting to go faster, he tried slowing down. He touched the brake, and all the brakes locked up on that four-wheeler. The front brakes just instantly locked up. And it flipped the back of that four-wheeler up, which flung me forward. And in the process, somehow, I don't know if it was my collarbone, my ribs, or what, instant pain. I thought I got flung up into him, and I cracked my ribs or something. He said he never felt me hit him. I don't know what the hell happened, but oh my God, I was in so much pain. All I could do was cry. And I'm beating on him. Get us out of here. We got to, because while all this is going on, I can still hear something up on that mountainside following us and watching us. He finally got it, the brakes freed up, and we got down off that mountain and back to his place. I never wanted to go back up there again. Mm-mm. I'm very adventurous and everything, but no, thank you. I had my fill of that one.
Well, this is weird. And he's about to pack it up. And then he hears something behind him.
Oh, gosh.
And it's not like if a deer or coyotes, it's kind of like a quick movement. And then they take a few steps and then they pause. And he describes the steps. Remember, this is like deep snow, as deliberate and like consistent sequential steps. Just crunch, crunch, like something big enough to really be compacting the snow. And he listens to it circle behind him. And he's like, okay, like I've waited long enough trying to maintain his cover. And he has like one of the red spotlights that doesn't like disrupt the woods. And he whips around and he turns the light on the thing. And there's this 7-foot creature that drops from 10 feet away, drops to all fours and like postures like, what am I doing next? And he describes this thing, like the thing with a red light, he described glowing red or glowing yellow eyes, almost as if the eyes were like projecting into the light. Freaked him out. And then he's just frozen. He's like, he has a gun, but he's like, he's 10 feet away. Like, what do I do next? And the thing starts to crawl toward him on all fours. And as it takes the first step, he said what he noticed was the length of the front arm and the fact that this thing, which had long hair, pulled back ears, long snout like a dog, dark thing, I already said dark fur, but this thing had human hands with long claws.
Oh, gosh.
And when he saw that, that's when he said, nope. And like he had a 12 gauge loaded up, pulled the trigger, and underneath the red light he was using, just a puff of like, if you've watched an animal like hunting, there's like a puff of mist that happens when you hit it, and immediately did it. And he said it let out a yell, but he described it as almost like a long bark. Like,
it's like Andy throwing up. Yeah,
it's just yeah. But so there's this vapor, and so he actually begins to. This dude's crazy. He begins to blood trail what he just shot, and he follows it for like probably like 50 yards. I think it was like just like to the edge of where he was hunting, and he was like, okay, this is I'm dipping. I'm not doing this alone. Comes back the next day with one of his buddies from hunting camp, and the tracks are still there. And there's still a blood trail, and he describes the tracks as dog-like, and so it had gone back upright when it ran after being shot. But
on twos,
but having like a dog print. And then they start weaving, and it's bleeding the whole time. There's blood, so you're like, I'm about to walk up on whatever this creature is and put out of my mind everything that freaked me out. Well, it gets to a clearing, and the tracks appear as though they've like it loads up, presses down like it jumped, but it's a wide open field. No more tracks, no more blood.
Portal.
Just gone. Middle of the field.
Weird.
Dude doesn't hunt anymore.
Call them werewolves. Others call them dogmen. Whatever they are, they've been terrifying people for hundreds of years. In the past, it's been easy to dismiss these sightings as mistakes or superstitions. But these creatures are not so easy to dismiss anymore, because now we have pictures. Since the early 19th century, and perhaps even before, there have been stories of a terrifying creature lurking in the dark woods of northern Michigan. It looks like a large black dog, but then it rears up on its hind legs and stands over 7 feet tall. It has the head of a canine with icy blue eyes that shimmer in the dark. It has the body of a man covered in fur. It howls like a wolf, though the sound has been said to be closer to a scream than a howl. These stories existed as part of a myth that circulated around Michigan and Wisconsin for years, but the myth went mainstream in 1987. Jack O'Malley and Steve Cook worked at WTCM Radio in Michigan. As part of an April Fool's Day prank, they wrote a song called The Legend. And the legend tells the story of a race of half-human, half-dog hybrids that appear every 10 years and stalk through the dark woods of northern Michigan. The song warned listeners that these dogmen were due to appear this year. And then the song ended ominously.
And somewhere in the north woods darkness, a creature walks upright. And the best advice you may ever get is don't go out at night.
The reaction Cook and O'Malley got was unexpected. They were hoping to have fun and spook the listeners a little bit. Then the phone lines lit up. The first call was from an elderly man who said he was chilled to the bone when he heard the song because he had seen a similar creature several years earlier, and that opened the floodgates. Calls began pouring in with people telling their own stories about encounters with the dogman. The legend went back over 100 years. In 1887, lumberjacks in the area came across what they thought was a large dog until it stood up screeched at them, and ran into the woods. In 1857, a letter described a frightening creature that stood up like a man, yet bore the face of a gray wolf. A French fur trader's diary was found dated 1804. In it, he described seeing a loup-garou, the French word for werewolf. Even Native American legends talk about a shapeshifter, a man who could transform into a wolf. And there's documentation of an actual sheriff's investigation responding to a local sighting of a dogman. Still, these were all stories. But now that the legend of the dogman was front and center in the public's mind, more reliable witnesses would come forward, and they would bring proof. In 1961, a night watchman was working his shift at a factory near the Haymarsh in Michigan. One of the job perks was the watchman and his family could live on a house on the property. The front porch of the house made it easy for him to keep an eye on things. The watchman made his rounds and headed back to the porch to sit, relax, and have a cup of coffee. This was a remote area, and the night was passing uneventfully. The sound of crickets and night birds filled the air. Then, just after 3 a.m., the crickets and birds suddenly stopped. There was only silence. It was so abrupt that the watchman started to feel uneasy. Then, at the edge of the property, he heard the distinctive sound of a chain-link fence rattling. At this late hour and such a remote location, this wasn't an accident. This was an intruder. The watchman drew his gun and waited. Then he noticed that the intruder wasn't a man. It was something much bigger. He said it appeared to be covered in brown-gray hair. It was tall and had broad shoulders. It alternated between walking on 4 legs and then standing up on 2. It was looking for something in the driveway. The watchman quietly went into his house and grabbed a Kodak Signet 35mm camera. As the watchman stepped back onto his porch, the creature walked slowly along the driveway directly under the lights. The watchman adjusted the camera for a long exposure and held it as still as he possibly could and took this picture. After this photo was taken, the creature went back down on all 4s and walked out into the woods. Though he wouldn't explain why until years later, the watchman didn't let his children play outside after dark. Another story happened in 1987, in Sparta, Michigan, 1987, just a few miles north of Grand Rapids. 2 young men were heading to a cabin for a weekend of hunting and fishing. They were on a secluded road with no lights, so it was very dark. And about 100 yards ahead, the car's headlights caught something that made both men jump. It looked like a human covered in gray fur. As they drove closer and then passed, they got a good look at it. It was the size of a tall man. It stood on 2 legs, had a wolf-like face, and was covered in gray fur. It even raised its arms and snarled at them as they drove by. Reed City, Michigan, 1993. Courtney was sneaking a cigarette behind her parents' home when she saw movement near a barn that was on the property. About 50 feet from the barn, she saw what looked like a large dog or wolf, but couldn't really tell what it was. Then it turned around, looked at her, and stood up on 2 legs. It was over 6 feet tall, covered in dark fur, and had a dog-like face with long nose and pointed ears. And there would be more sightings over the years in the same area. 1994 in Watersmeet, 2001 in Alpena. And all witnesses reported the same creature. Face of a canine that stood on 2 legs and was over 6 or 7 feet tall, bigger than any dog or wolf. But nobody really knew how big the creature was until 2007, when an eyewitness took a picture of its footprint.
Strange story out of rural Coffee County. Residents there say they've heard unusual animal sounds at night, and several ATV riders say they've seen unusual-looking creatures in the distance.
I can just say this. Something's going on in the woods. Recently, the 2 men have received reports from ATV riders of distant sightings of an unusual animal, but it didn't sound like a coyote.
Hey, there's something strange. There's some knocking going on. We hear some screeches. They're not dogs. They're not coyotes.
And this is not the first time there have been reports of an unusual creature in the woods.
Witness of this next sighting is a prominent Michigan politician and wants to remain anonymous. In 2007, he was driving from Benzonia to Traverse City. He was taking the scenic route down Cinder Road, a few miles outside the town of Bendon. In the distance, he saw a pair of eyes shining in the dark. And at first he thought it was a deer, but as he got closer, he realized it was too big to be a deer. As he approached, he slowed down to 30 miles an hour and was about 200 feet from the creature, which didn't move. He described it as a large wolf, up on 2 legs, standing near a dead deer. It was well over 6 feet tall and covered in dark fur. At that point, still a good distance away, he stopped the car to take a look. It didn't move, so he thought it could be a giant stuffed animal, someone playing a joke. Before he could finish his next thought, the creature dropped down on all 4 legs, sprinted across the road, and disappeared into the woods. The man was frozen in his seat for a full minute before he summoned the courage to investigate. He grabbed his flashlight and approached the dead deer. There was no way he was going to follow the thing into the woods, but he wanted to see if it left any tracks. It did. The man was familiar with animal tracks and said it looked like a wolf print, but was bigger than any wolf print he'd ever seen. Luckily, he had his digital camera with him. He dropped a shotgun shell in the print for size reference. A shotgun shell is between 2 and 3 inches long, depending on the gauge and the load. So this footprint could be 10 or 12 inches long, maybe bigger. When interviewed, the man said he was familiar with the song on the radio and the local legend, but always thought they were just entertaining stories. After this incident, he realized the stories were real, and he never drove on that road again.
This is a strange-like human-like part creature seen in Texas.
So that's at the Amarillo Zoo, and they came across this weird image while looking at some security footage recently. It was captured in the middle of the night. It was back in May, and the city of Amarillo wants your help in identifying.
Most Michigan Dogman sightings happen in Michigan. This particular cryptid has the ability to cross state lines. Just to the west of northern Michigan is Wisconsin. This area, also densely wooded, has its own local legend that's awfully similar to the Michigan Dogman, and it's called the Beast of Bray Road. In the 1990s, residents of Walworth County reported seeing a humanoid werewolf stalking a road outside of town. It's described as being between 6 and 7 feet tall, covered in dark fur with a head resembling a wolf or a bear, and it's been seen moving on 2 legs and on 4. The creature was covered in newspapers, in books, documentaries, even TV shows. There were so many reports about the beast that local reporter Linda Godfrey was assigned to cover the story. Now, at first, she was skeptical, but later she believed the witnesses were telling the truth. What makes this cryptid different than the Michigan Dogman is its aggression. Doris Gibson was driving along Bray late one night when she felt a thump. Thinking she hit something, she got out to investigate. Then the beast leapt out of the darkness and chased her back to her car. Then it scraped the trunk of her car, leaving deep scratch marks before she drove away. And many of these sightings would have been just part of a hazy legend, if not for Linda Godfrey's reporting. In 2018, this blurry photo was taken by Danny Morgan just outside Elkhorn, Wisconsin. He said he saw the creature not once, but twice in a month. Morgan said it was over 7 feet tall, brown, and hairy. It walked out toward the road, picked something up, and then went back into the woods. Now, I don't know if the creature in this picture is 7 feet tall. It's blurry and hard to tell. But whatever it is, I'd be terrified if I saw that thing walking along the side of the road at night. In July of 2020, there were 2 other sightings of the creature about 9 miles east of Elkhorn. Again, the same description. At least 7 feet tall, walking on hind legs, covered in dark fur. And the sightings go on, some from very reliable sources.
When I first heard about it, I probably laughed. I think I did laugh because it just seemed crazy to me that anybody would think that. But then when you go and talk to the people and you meet them and they still seem genuinely frightened, they don't want to see it again, you know, you just can't help but believe somebody like that. I've interviewed people with 2 PhDs, middle-aged women who work in a factory on 3rd shift at night, very elderly people, farmers, somebody from the Milwaukee airport with a very high clearance. It's just men, women, you name it. There's no one sort of person.
Linda Godfrey started out as a skeptic, but ended up publishing a few books about dogmen, werewolves, and the Beast of Bray Road. One of them is ominously titled, I Know What I Saw. The most compelling and frightening piece of evidence comes from the Gable film. The Gable film was discovered in 2007 in a box of junk that was sold at a yard sale. It looks like it's shot on 8mm film sometime in the 70s. It's the typical home movie, kids playing in the snow, dad chopping wood, fixing his car. Then the film takes an ominous turn. There are shots of the photographer scanning the woods for something, though it's difficult to see. There are shots of the dog who seems excited by something and appears to have caught a scent. Then we're back in the woods. The photographer scanning the trees again and then stops on this. It seems to be an animal on all 4s, but I can't tell what kind of animal. Then it starts walking. Then it starts running. The photographer takes off and then seems to fall down. One of the last frames captured by the Gable film is a mouthful of teeth and then darkness.
Werewolf. And my mom believed me.
It was walking along a good probably 7 to 10 seconds before it had turned its head.
That thing, that was no dog. That was too big to be a dog. That thing was bigger than me.
That thing was stalking cornfields, jumping on cars, and feasting on roadkill. For 2 years, people in Elkhorn, Wisconsin whispered about a king-sized creature who roamed Bray Road.
A piece of footage surfaced online that has the cryptid community divided. Trail camera footage from Missouri shows what appears to be a wolf pup climbing a tree in broad daylight. But something about the creature looks fundamentally wrong. The way it moves, the way it grips the bark, the proportions of its body, none of it adds up to any known animal. If this footage is genuine, it might be the first clear documentation of a juvenile dogman captured on camera. Your perspective matters because this is one of those cases where the community needs to weigh in. The implications of this being real are staggering, and the questions it raises are ones we all need to consider. The footage first appeared on several cryptid forums and social media groups within days of each other. Multiple accounts posted it, some claiming to have received it from a friend in Missouri, others saying they found it on an obscure hunting forum. The original source remains unclear. The forest appears to be typical Missouri woodland with pine trees and dense understory vegetation creating a green backdrop. The creature itself defies easy classification. At first glance, it resembles a wolf pup or perhaps a large dog. The head has that distinctly canine shape with a pronounced snout and pointed ears. The fur appears dark gray to black, thick and somewhat shaggy. But the similarities to known canines end there, replaced by details that become more disturbing the longer you examine them. The most immediately obvious anomaly is the fact that this creature is in a tree at all. Wolves do not climb trees. Dogs do not climb trees beyond perhaps scrambling onto low branches in pursuit of prey.
So this frickin' thing, it's staring at me. It followed me home from the gifting rock. It's about 1 o'clock in the morning right now. I think I don't know what to do. But it followed me home, and it is absolutely staring at me right now. Oh. All right.
In correlation to that, Dogman is another big cryptid that walks around. Does that also have negative interactions with canines as well?
Yeah, so here's the thing with Dogman. You know, there's a website called North American Dogman Project everyone should check out. And then you gotta look up Catherine Cross. Catherine Cross on her tombstone says killed by human wolves. But when you travel to this town, these people, they'll chase you out of the town, because when it comes to Dogman, you have groups that use sequestered knowledge, like esoteric information, what we would call witchcraft, but it's just esoteric information. They can transform themselves into a wolf-like being. But if you look all throughout history, on every continent, they talk about tribes of people who had dog faces. Christopher Columbus, his brother, in his earlier text, he spoke about encountering a tribe of people with dog faces here on the American mainland. So if all of these stories are showing up all across the world, every continent, last year there were 44,000 Dogman reports. You know, 44,000 people making this up? I doubt it.
Is there something evil about cryptids, or is this just the sort of how people feel?
Right.
You know, like, yeah, how should we think of cryptids in terms of,
should
like
we
their
be scared?
goodness or their
Should we be
evilness?
scared, Lori?
Yeah.
Or does it depend?
Should you? Wouldn't even come into play, because you would be.
Right.
But I do understand what you're asking.
Yeah.
Some of them are docile, I guess is the word I would use. But there have been many people that have had experiences where they would say a prayer and this thing would just leave.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, like the devil's work kind of thing. Like they're
right. But then there are others where people have actually claimed to form relationships with them.
Does Australia have a Dogman? Take a listen to this gentleman's video. A little bit of a backstory. He is from Australia. Keep in mind, he's not out in the middle of nowhere where, there's true wildlife. He's in a suburban area. He's hearing these sinister growls, and they had been happening over the course of several days. He goes out to record and captures these growls. Instantly, I thought a big cat, a lion or a tiger. But you have to think of the area. Australia does not have big cats such as lions, tigers, even cougars, mountain lions. They do have a smaller form of a panther, but not the big cats. Also, he follows up with a little bit of an investigation, and he shows a tree bark where something scratched it up.
There's that noise again. Quick, let's go see what it is.
Story time from one of my cases in Georgia. This is a father's dilemma with a clan of Dogman, 3 of them. So what caused the Dogman to come in was his marital problems. He was having some difficulties with his wife. Arguments started to happen. They had kids. But, the way that he was coping with the discussions and the disagreements and the fights was he would go fishing in the evenings. He'd come home from work and the first thing he would do is grab his fishing poles and he'd go out to fish. Just to not be in the house, just to not to argue and scream and whatnot. And then that was even more of a little problem because then he'd come home smelling like fish, and his wife would even get even more mad because he smelled like fish. He even got to the point where he would clean the fish in the kitchen just to irk his wife even more. Through time of bringing the fish, he realized that irking his wife even more wasn't very good, especially because he has kids. So he began to leave the fish in the back of his pickup truck, and he would clean it there. This led to the Dogman becoming bold and wanting to eat the fish. His mind, the fish is what caused the Dogman to come towards the property. The reality, what caused the Dogman to come to the property was the fights and the arguments and the whole divorce and that situation. It just happens that the fish that he was providing by accident during that moment in time was giving them, let's say, I'll use the word a reward for being there, apart from, the main reason for them being there. So as they came bolder, they at one point in time, he went outside, he heard something suspicious. He kind of tried to address what it was. He didn't know what it was at the time. But that escalated into eventually one day he's outside cleaning the fish and there's a Dogman that he saw, in front of his truck. That Dogman left when it realized that there was a human behind the pickup truck. Later on, he had an argument with his wife. He walks outside to get away from it, and when he walks outside, there's a Dogman leaning over his pickup truck, grabbing the fish. He screams at it. He was mad, so he screams at it. The Dogman looks at him, growls, grabs the fish, and runs off. Through time, they did separate. They did divorce. And I'm pretty sure that happened before this individual called me. So now he's trying to figure out why are they there? Why are they, that they came? So after analyzing everything and obviously understanding, the change in the environment, which was the arguments, the screaming, and the divorce, that being the case, and then the next question is, why are they still there? He did manage to shoot one with a shotgun. He did manage to hit it. He saw the Dogman grab his shoulder when he got hit and let out a scream. This was him coming home. He was probably a mile or 2 from his house. The Dogman was running the field. And so him being mad because he's thinking that these things is what's causing his marriage to go downhill. He shoots at it. And that was his reasoning for shooting at it, at that moment in time. So, he gets home, things began to escalate, they began to trying to open the door, trying to break in the house. That was like the final straw. He had enough, and, he wanted to stop this nonsense. Again, this is kind of the moment in time where he calls me. So he breaks stuff down, right? So we know that they came there because of the change of the environment. In this case, it was a negative change of the environment. It was the case of the arguments, the divorce, and stuff like that. But because of the fish, they were being rewarded for coming to the house, So it's like if you're walking the streets and every day I give you a soda and a sandwich, eventually you're going to just walk by that house or walk by that person just because you get coached, you get, used to getting a soda and a sandwich. So that's what was happening with him. And the fish, later on, he realized that throughout the years, because this is a span of several years, when he would grill outside, he would cut off the fats of some of the steaks and chickens and whatnot and leave them there. In his mind, he was, because every morning they would be gone. So he would be thinking, raccoons came to eat it or whatever. Same thing with his dog food. He had a dog that the kennel outside had access, like a doggy door, to come inside the house. And he would feed his dog, and he would always know the dog would never finish the food, but in the morning it was gone. Again, he was thinking raccoons, he was thinking, the fats and stuff like that in the beginning. Later on, he did realize through understanding and visuals that no, they were the ones that were benefiting from all this food that was being left out, including the fish. Because obviously he never stopped fishing. So he wanted to stop them from trying to break in the house pretty much. And I don't want to use that word because breaking inside the house, gives the notion that they wanted to do harm to the people inside. And the Dogman, for the most part, isn't trying to break into your house because he wants to kill you. Now, if you F around and they want to break in, yeah, sure, okay, that's a different story. But just because a Dogman rattles the door does not mean he's trying to get inside to kill you. And there's different reasons for why he's trying to rattle the door. And the main reason is just curiosity. What's at the other side of that door? Especially if you are a family that always keeps the door closed, that curiosity is always going to be there because people come in, people come out, people come in, people come out. What's at the other side? And there's been multiple scenarios where a Dogman has managed to come inside, and his reaction to being inside is of a holy crap, a freeze, looking around, where am I, and then bolts back out. So numerous of those scenarios, we can confidently say that he's not trying to break in or trying to come inside because he wants to kill the person inside. One of the things that we began to do was to reduce the amount of food outside. Now, some of you might say, well, why don't he just stop feeding? Because if you already programmed, if you already made it a custom to feeding any critter, they're going to want more of it now because they got used to it, right? There's when it comes to us focusing or understanding behaviors, rather be human behavior, animal behaviors, is what we call predictable and unpredictable behaviors. Right? So unpredictable behaviors is when you're used to something and then all of a sudden it's not there. You're going to want it. You're going to get, kids do it all the time. If you give him an ice cream every Tuesday, it comes Tuesday, he's going to want ice cream. Even though you might not have ice cream for him, he's going to probably, cry, antagonize you because he wants that ice cream. He's used to that ice cream. So we had to begin to slowly take away these rewards from a lot to a little, slowly through time. So then they realized, well, it's less and less and less. I'll find it somewhere else. And sure enough, they began to kind of herd the deer or watch the deer from one of the trees that they had. So in the summertime, they'd be more up the mountain, and in the wintertime, they'd come down towards lowlands, and that's where the deer were. And he would be able to see them on trees watching the deer. And different noises that we collected led to this belief. We left off that the Dogman were slowly beginning to fall back as food was less and less available in the house, in the property, versus both in the grill and with the dog. Now, one thing that the guy always did was also he began to feed the deer. I forgot I mentioned that. He began to feed the deer So the deer in winter times would come down from the mountains to his area. And the Dogman began to, I guess, look at that as more of a food source because he was, bringing the deer there. So however that they took that, I don't know. But the Dogman did begin to, as I mentioned before, I'm going to use the word herd the deer. They'd go up on a tree and they'd be watching the deer. And then he says he would hear noises of them in the woods, and all of a sudden the deer would show up and you'd have one up on the tree. But the problems weren't done yet, right? So as the food began to be less and less, the household foods, let's say, they did become a little more curious to what was kind of going on. The food wasn't coming out. And he'd already had one or two times where they had to come to the door, jiggle the doorknob, but nothing major. This time out, I think he had both of his kids at home. And he heard the door rattle. And, I don't know what was, emotionally what was going on in his life at that moment in time. He tells me that he was very irritated. He was, things had happened with his wife, an argument or whatnot. So he was already mad, irritated, mad. And he remembers he grabbed a shotgun, put a slug in it and said, "This is it. I'm done with this, BS." Runs to the door and opens the door. Mind you, the Dogman on the other end, right? He opens the door, he points. The Dogman leapt from the porch back, he says, somewhere between 10 and 15 feet backwards. But something happened, right? And I'll explain some of this stuff, my theories, my opinions of my thoughts on this. And again, my research has shown this. So only for me, for my research, it only amplifies what I've always told eyewitnesses prior. So as the Dogman leapt, the Dogman put out his hand, right? And he muttered a word, a saying. I'm going to say the word. He muttered a word. And the word was, because we know that what he's trying to say, what he was trying to say, in my thoughts, right, in my research, he said it, brother, something like that. Basically brother, but without, imagine a 1-year-old trying to say it, right? Raspy, not all the words were pronounced properly, and that word stopped the man from pulling the trigger. He brought the hand down, looked at it looked at him, and it just ran off. Obviously, I got a phone call, right? I think it was the day after, or that same night, I don't remember. But I got a message, of what happened. So we began to break things down, right? And he, obviously, because of what you hear in social media and this and that, he was going left field on me. So we began to break things down, and knowing Dogman makes dens at people's property, knowing that if you have a problem with a Dogman in your property, chances are the Dogman has already lived there for a significant amount of time. And they know your ins and outs. They know your words. They know the phrases you use. And Dogman is very smart, right? Dogman can pick up on words and actions. Let's say I'm going to use this as an example, just for the sake of the conversation. If you have a dog and you tell him to sit, you got to show him the position multiple times and probably reward that position with the word so the dog can can understand word means this because I get something back, right? With Dogman, you can pretty much say it once or do it once and they kind of figure things out by themselves. That's how smart they are. So we began to analyze words, right? And quickly, I mean, the conversation didn't last probably 10 minutes. Quickly we realized that his little girl, every time he would see her brother, she gets so happy and so emotional to see her brother. And the way she would say brother was in the almost exact way that the Dogman told or said it to the father. Right? Now, it's in my mind, no doubt, it's an association of the girl responds happily, the girl responds joyfully with a word that means whatever it meant. But there's nothing bad when it comes to that word. And the Dogman used that same word, as rather, a mimic, understanding the outcome or the possible outcome, of that word through what he has already seen that has happened in the house, in the yard, with the little girl and her son. And then when he realized that his little daughter has said that word, he realized that yes, that's what he heard. After this happened, I'm going to say that the gap between them two was sealed in a sense of, I will leave you alone and you leave us alone. Nothing bad has ever happened in that property ever again. Does he see the Dogman? Sure. They're going after the deer. He has accepted the fact that they're going to be around. So what he has done is feed the deer. Get them all piled up into an area, right? He says, the last time I spoke to him, once in a while, I'm going to say the alpha, the one that's always in charge, or the one that he has the problem with most, will sometimes be in a tree and he'll look at him and they'll look at each other, and he leaves, jumps off the tree and runs away or whatever. But they have that respect of, okay, you're there, I'm here, we're good, peace out. This happened in Georgia several years ago. Once in a while, I'll see him, not see him physically, but, on Messenger or whatever, but, intense situation, intense things, a lot of things were learned that day, not that day, but in this encounter, that, later on, we begin to analyze how smart they are and how they analyze things and how fast they can associate words with actions and stuff like that, which became beneficial for us in the field.
Basically, the Dogman by folklore is a cryptid creature that's pretty much like a werewolf, but I don't think they can transform back into human form. So anyway, my big brother was telling me a story. He lived over not too far from Winnegaw Farm, which if you in Omaha, that's right off the baby interstate. They just started building a lot of new houses over there. It was a whole bunch of fields, blah, blah, blah. One night, my brother was walking the dogs, and my brother got 4 dogs, right? And he only was walking them at night because I think he had to work during the day, some shit like that was going on. But anyway, he was walking the dogs at night, and over there in that neighborhood, they got a couple creeks, like ducked off in the cut, like in the parks, I guess. And he said that the whole time they were walking on this street, it was dead quiet. Like, that eerie silence that make your hair stand up, like it feels like something's watching you. Anyway, he said the dogs was looking into the pitch blackness too, like over into the creek area, and they weren't saying anything. A dog, if it see anything, it's either going to try to pull away, it might bark, anything like that. But the dogs was being quiet, and they was kind of like, not going that way, but they were looking that way. My brother said they just keep walking. He said he get all the way to the top of the hill over like yonder, I guess, right before they got to their block to get home. And he said you just heard a very loud, distinctive howl. And it just wasn't a howl anymore. It was like it went from a ow to a like something like it was changing into a monster pretty much. So with that being said, and upon hearing other stories about people actually encountering this thing in Omaha and other parts of rural Nebraska, it just kind of makes you wonder, like, what's really out there, you know?
That's my backyard. I'm zooming in a little piece. This is the exact spot that I just
noticed that in a lot of these cases that you would have some type of cryptid that would be looking in the window and almost harassing people, and these creatures sometimes are so huge that a window would not be an obstacle.
Well, let's go back to Amelia. You watched the documentary today. She got an 8 or 9 foot tall upright lichen wolf staring through the window in the doorway. This thing is big enough to rip that door off. This thing is big enough to lift up the roof and peek in. It can't. There's a separation. There's something stopping this creature from just opening the door, ripping off the door. There's a protection there. And that's what we need to look at.
Right. And that's what makes me kind of lean towards the supernatural side, such as like in Job, when the sons of God had to go before God, the Lord, and ask permission to go that direction and to physically, touch or what have you. Because, those beings are so huge. There's a house, they could rip the wall off. They could just grab it and tear the wall completely down, rip the roof off or whatever. So there seems to be something that keeps that from happening, similar to like the black-eyed kid thing.
Well, it's an invitation. And I've investigated things where even unwaringly and unwittingly an invitation was made. And when something shows up and accepts that invitation, it's not a cool thing. But you be careful what you ask for and what you wish for, because something will fulfill what you ask for. Scary. It's all cool to worship. Hey man, Satan's cool, but until he shows up on your doorstep. Then it's not so cool anymore, is it? But you made the invitation. So be careful. Be careful. You're out there playing the ghosty ghost, excuse my French, and something follows you home. And you think it's your dearly departed Uncle Sid. It's not. It's something demonic. Deceiving spirits. I watched one of your videos today. I think we're on the same page. So out there sitting in the graveyard, you're sitting in the graveyard with dead men's bones. There's no spirits there unless they show up, and it's not your dearly departed. Believe me, something you don't want to deal with.
Well, that's one of the reasons I make these videos is I've had my own encounters, and they weren't fun. They were very, very terrifying, and to the point of even having PTSD.
Most of us here have heard our parents or grandparents say, if you show them fear, it'll bite you. Don't show them fear. When it comes to like a dog that's barking at you. And there's some truth to that. Dogs are hypervigilant our human emotions. They live with us, right? So if we're scared, if we're sick, they kind of realize that because our hormones change. They're also hypervigilant on our body language, right? That's how they pick things up on us. I can go up to a dog and give a specific body language, and the dog be like, right? But I can also give another body language, and the dog be like, hey, buddy. So body language is something that every living creature, it doesn't matter, humans, wolves, rather domestic or wild, body language, right, is the main communication that everything has. So that said, fear translates to something, right? Fear equals unpredictable or unpredictability. Unpredictability means that you're dangerous. Now I have to rather do something about it, right, or leave. Okay, and for any individuals that have had experience or training in law enforcement, corrections, military, if you go to the supermarket with your family and you have somebody pacing and being unpredictable, you're going to become hypervigilant on that person, because in our minds, that person is becoming a threat. I have to make sure that I watch this person, right? So That said, when you're out in the field, one of the best things to do to lower, your emotions and you lower your fear is talking to yourself and or talking to the cryptid at hand, right? We see that a lot with people who are in bear country. Hey, bear, I'm over here, bear. Go away, bear. They are talking to the bear. But this makes us, I guess, more aware of ourselves, right? Our emotions can't be in the same atmosphere if we're talking to somebody. We're personalizing something, or even talking to ourselves. So this is something I do all the time. I talk to myself. I talk to the cryptid or the creature in front of me. I make light of it, right? Because now I become more relaxed. Not completely, but I become more relaxed. Now, two things will happen. If you manage to show that, hey, I'm not dangerous, the cryptid might just walk away. But if you don't manage, he might take a step or two forward. You take a step or two backwards. Not fast. What you don't want to show is fear. What you don't want to show is, you want to show yourself to be a neutral individual. You want to show yourself to be a confident individual. Right? So if he steps forward, I'll leave. Right? Again, you're talking to yourself. Does not mean that he understands, but your body language will translate something, right? And then just walk away. Never give your back to anything in that scenario. Always remember there might be more than one around, right? So you don't want to bump into another one, but slowly walk away while showing the same postures, right? And making sure that you are aware of your surroundings, right? As you walk out. Never run, obviously. They're highly prey driven. So if you run, chase is on. Even if they don't want to kill you, the chase is going to be on, right? Just because you're running. But they like confidence, not cocky confidence. So be neutral, be confident in yourself. Let them know that, hey, listen, I'm not here to bust your chops. I'm not here to harm you. I'm just here on a hike. You're there, right? So, I mean, if you don't want me to go there, that's fine. I'll go this way. And pretty much make sure that you do that in a confident state. Make sure that you are not acting cocky, you're not acting aggressive. And just walk away, basically. Sometimes, when you are neutral, when you are confident, and you just pause, you guys will probably look at each other and it'll probably just walk away. Because a lot of times when you pause and then you guys stare at each other, he becomes stressed and anxious in a way of, what is this guy going to do? Right? This is why sometimes they tend to step forward, or they might give you the smile and slowly walk away. Right? But those are the best tips I can give you. There's a lot of nuances to this, right? Obviously, we have rogues. We have dogmen that have had bad experiences in properties. We have had dogmen that had bad experiences with people, right? So pray you don't end up with one of those situations, right? But your chances of survival are high if you just follow those steps.
Look, you see the eyes out there. Yes.
Hey, man. like up here.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Holy cow.
It's a good sized dog.
There you go. Could you move your light back a little bit? Right.
Miley! Lola! Miley! Lola! Get over here! Miley! Lola! Dude, that's some crazy sound. Miley! Lola! Want a treat? Should've let them out. Miley! Come, girls! Miley! Lola! I think they're gone.
What the?
Watch out for the wolf.
Thank you for watching. If these Dogman encounters sent a chill down your spine, make sure to subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments below. As always, stay safe, stay aware, question everything, and remember, out there in those woods, something might be watching.